Hello and welcome to Teletalk. I'm Liv.
And I'm Ben.
And on tonight's episode, you'll hear our carefully considered and not at all random thoughts on a show we like.
We're giving ourselves an age rating of 15 and above, but you're welcome to make up your own mind. Listener discretion is advised.
So, as you may have gathered, we are a new podcast. We are a husband and wife duo, and we're doing this to have fun and to hopefully provide you with some fun listening and entertainment. We would be really grateful for any reviews, ratings that you could give us, what you think about what we're providing.
Yeah, on your platform of choice.
Yes, on your platform of choice.
You can also contact us or reach out to us on our socials. We're on Blue Sky at TeletalkPod. We're on Facebook as well. We have a page, TeletalkPod. And you'll never guess that our email address is teletalkpod@outlook.com.
Yeah, all the Gmails were gone.
You don't have to tell them that. And with no further ado, on with the show.
So tonight we are talking about Gavin and Stacey.
We certainly are. What's occurring?
What's occurring? So we come to this at an interesting point because we have both seen this from start to finish over the years.
All of the specials, all of the everything.
Yeah, we know this. I like to think inside out, but
I think you know it more than me because you've watched it cumulatively more times than me.
yes, it's something that I come back to and rewatch.
You've dragged me into watching it at times.
I have, with good reason, because it's a very good show.
It's incredibly British.
It's almost a social commentary, isn't it?
Oh, it's definitely a social commentary, and it feels quite fitting that we would start going through it all now that it's finally finished.
It's all done, which is sad, but
I like that it finished while it was good. It
while
didn't
people
outstay
cared
its rate.
about it.
Yeah, it didn't outstay its welcome. It didn't drag itself too long and sort of become a parody of itself.
Yeah. So we're doing this starting from season 1, episode 1, which, oh my goodness, it first aired on the 13th of May 2007.
Oh.
It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Well, that hit me in ways I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to give us an overview of the episode description?
Yes, the episode description from the BBC iPlayer, where you can find this anytime, is after being phone buddies for months, they finally arrange a rendezvous in Leicester Square with Stacey's best friend Nessa and Gav's pal Smithy coming along for support.
Yes, I like how you hesitated for support.
Support. We'll get to that later.
I think Nessa is supportive. I think Smithy is lacking.
Smithy's a dick.
And we love him.
On that note.
All right. I was just wondering if you wanted to give an overall impression, what you thought about the episode.
The episode. You're going to do that now at the beginning. I liked it. It was funny and touching at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
We can just clip that for every episode.
I wanted to say that I thought it was a really good introduction to everyone. I feel like we got a real good insight, short and concise, to every character.
That's actually a really good point, actually. Yeah, thinking about it as a starting point, you got a real microcosm of each character. Like, you could show this to someone, like a little clip of each character.
Yeah.
And it's just a little cameo of exactly what they're like.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So yeah, I liked this episode, and I feel like it's a really good starting place.
I feel like I didn't give it enough credit. You've
know.
made me think about it more now. But actually, it's masterful for a starting. You couldn't really do better as a first episode introduction.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, as we've said, we've already seen this, but as we go along and as we see more episodes, it gets funnier because we know the characters more.
Yeah, the humour in this episode is learning the slightly absurd idiosyncrasies of the characters. But as you go along, the comedy then becomes the familiarity with those absurdities.
Yes. And of course we have your favourite thing a couple of times in this episode of smash cuts.
I love me a smash cut.
Yeah, so I think they hit it off at a good place. And I do think it does get better. So if you enjoy the first episode, you're in for a real treat.
I'd like to say a upfront thank you for the amount of times you put in all caps in our notes. Cut! I think there might even have been a hard cut in there as well. I really appreciated that.
I just wanted you to remember in the moment.
I will.
Yeah.
So I think we can start off
Yeah.
with the show. We pan across, and you've put here we pan across a dock.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's Barry dock.
I know.
Oh, okay.
But we don't know that it's Barry at the time that the camera's panning across.
But I did know it was Barry.
Yeah, because you've seen it before.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my goodness, what a rookie error.
It's going to be a long recap. And we hear, I would say, an annoying female voice laughing and giggling over the phone.
Yeah, if she was your colleague,
I've written
drive
here
you
she would be
insane.
insufferable to work with.
Yeah.
Especially that whole, like, oh, everyone's looking at me, Gav, and not a single person is looking at her.
I know.
Which is a good start.
But it's partly what you love about Stacey.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh no, to be fair, I remember at the time when this first came out actually.
Oh.
Yeah, having quite not me, but a few friends going, "Oh my god, Stacey's so whiny and annoying."
Yeah.
I don't think that. I mean, she's.
I mean, I suppose it's one of those ones, and I won't get into going too far ahead into it, but there's stuff that you learn about Stacey and her history that sort of puts some of that into interesting context, I think.
Okay.
The number of times she's been engaged, for example.
Right, okay.
You just sort of like go, this seems like a pattern.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing is, as with Gavin and Stacey as a whole, there are real people like this.
Well,
and I suppose maybe I was a bit more forgiving of an annoying character because people are annoying.
not speak for yourself.
So
But what I've realised is we haven't actually said what's happening. Gavin and Stacey, the eponymous characters of the show.
eponymous?
Yes, they're what the show's named
They
after.
are upon us.
Yes, that's exactly it.
They are
Well,
upon us, basically. Is that what you mean?
No. There is a word that's eponymous.
Eponymous. With an I?
With
Right,
an E.
with an E.
Eponymous. And it means
Eponymous.
of the name. So basically, the show is called Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah, I know
Those
that.
characters are Gavin and Stacey.
I know that.
So they are the eponymous Gavi and Stacey.
Gabby.
What did I say? I said Gavi. It's a modern retwist. It's Gavin and Gavi and Stacey.
Okay, so Ben's
This has
chatting
gone to
shit.
shit. It's gone to hell already.
They're on their phone and they're planning their first meeting for the next day. Did you say that already?
Yeah, well, I didn't say about the meeting the next day. I got very much stuck into how annoying they are. I would like to know, like, how much work do they get done that they've managed to form a fully fledged long-distance romance, apparently exclusively talking through the phone at work?
Well, I mean, this is covered, I think, in the next episodes.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I just wanted to put, for now, like, one of the things that Stacey says that, as I said before, sort of sets up her character. She's talking about smoking, and Gavin says, "Oh, you smoke?" And she goes, "Yeah. But I'm going to start stopping when I'm 28 and then definitely stop when I'm 30.
Yeah, that made me feel old.
Like, but how can you plan that? Like, that's not
That
not
is
how it
something that
works.
people do say, though, isn't it? It rang so true.
Really?
I've known people like that.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow, that was a very judgy. Oh. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That rang really true to me in a kind of like pastiche. Like that's what people do. Okay, so they discuss meeting the next day, and then we get intro music as we cut to Barry Wales.
And we see Stacey talking to a character who we learn to be Doris.
Yeah.
God, I love Doris.
Do you know, I can't say that I'm surprised. But again, it's a pattern of sort of countering the stereotype that you're expecting.
Yeah, they pose it as a juxtaposition, don't they? Because Doris is the elderly next door neighbour, and you expect her to be dainty, quiet.
And instead she's saying, why don't they just cut the bugger off about her leg?
Yeah.
Give me an axe and I'll do it myself.
Yeah. And she's talking to Stacey about her trip to London. And
yes, and being quite forward.
Yes. Yeah, with the sexual content of...
Oh, yeah. One thing that I noticed...
She says to Stacey, don't go giving him nothing. And Stacey says, what, nothing? She goes, well, not nothing. And then she lists all the things that she would approve of on the first date.
Yeah.
And it's quite an extensive list.
It is quite an extensive list, yeah. Well, I was just going to point out a thing that I noticed that you would hate.
Right.
Because you call me out on it every time I do
Oh,
it.
no.
She said, oh, you're going up London.
I know.
When it's down.
Is it? Yeah,
it literally is. It couldn't be. So when I do it, you do not let me get away with that. No.
You've got to know which direction you're travelling in.
There was another thing that you hate in this.
Oh, dear.
You remember when Gavin said it? Can you believe it's only 17 hours till we meet?
Yeah.
You know how, like, the counting down of hours until something, you really hate it when I do that.
They're counting down to a good thing. Aren't they? Is that different? I feel like that might be different.
I don't feel like it's normally different.
You're usually going, oh, only 6 hours till we wake up and it's a Monday. That's not fun.
You make it sound like I, like, nudge you awake at, like, 6.
Oh, Lordy.
This is your hourly time reminder. Most of my notes are just pointing out things you hate.
Yeah.
No.
Is it?
No, it's not. But that bit, that corner of my notes very much was. So Stacey goes inside and we meet Gwen, her mum.
Yes, and they just have such a normal conversation. Like, it's just mundane. You know, she's like, oh, chatting to Doris, how's her leg? You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
I like your top. I got it from TK Maxx, only a £5.
Yeah.
I was just like, that is so British, it's untrue.
Yeah.
Like, that's a conversation that happens, you know, approximately 400 times a second.
Up and down the country.
Oh, yes. And
Did you see what I did there?
Yes. Yes. Oh, God. Oh, we're going to be on for one today. Gwen offers Stacey an omelette, which is a thing, and will continue to be a thing.
It becomes a thing. And do you know what? I recently read that the omelette thing, Gwen's omelette thing, was never meant to be a thing.
Was it improv, or was it in the script and it just became a thing?
It was scripted, but it wasn't a big deal, and the audience sort of latched onto it and made it a big deal, and it's sort of because of them that Gwen has an omelette thing.
It makes me wonder if this scene is to do with that, though, because they make because they like Gwen says, oh, if Nessa's coming, why don't you ring her and ask if she wants an omelette?
Yeah.
And they make such a big dramatic thing of this phone call,
yeah,
because you think she's going to ring her and go, do you want an omelette?
Yes.
No.
You know.
What they do is they go, do you want an omelette? Uh-huh. And she's silent for ages, and the tension builds, and they slowly zoom the camera into her.
Yeah.
Until she goes, yeah, all right, bye. And then I now can't remember whether
she goes, she don't want one.
Yeah. Again, completely counteracting what you're expecting.
Yes, yeah. It's good. And yeah, you're right. That scene might well have been what made the audience latch on to omelettes.
Well, it's not often you actually get a period of focused silence, particularly in a comedy show.
Yeah.
So it was like that juxtaposition of comedy and then suspense and then comedy again. Yeah. And that's actually I think that's one of the real qualities of Gavin and Stacey as a show is, and we're going to use juxtaposition again because that's our word of the day, it seems, that juxtaposition of serious or like heartfelt subject matter alongside very good comedy. And it's I think all of the really great shows manage that balance of tone.
I think that's I think
you get it with classic like things like Scrubs and other great shows like that are remembered for their comedy, but I think they're equally remembered for those really touching, heartfelt moments that I think hit more because of the juxtaposition of that and the comedy.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That was my serious noise.
Yeah.
Like, serious bit. I'm done now.
Well, I also wanted to just say that, obviously, that we haven't met Nessa yet.
Oh, yeah.
But that scene tells you a lot about Nessa, We haven't heard her voice, we haven't seen her, we haven't met her in any way, apart from this one-sided phone conversation with Stacey, and my God, do we learn a lot about Nessa.
See, my instinct for a moment was to go, and Nessa's really the biggest character from the show, but that's not true.
No.
Every single character is both somehow ridiculously larger than life, but also completely authentic and real feeling.
Yeah.
Somehow, despite the madness.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. But we get our first big cut.
Yes.
And we cut to Gavin driving his Citroen Saxo like a
No,
twat.
you have ruined a moment.
Oh.
His car is iconic.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Gavin's blue Citroen Saxo. It's just...
I must have missed that in the zeitgeist of...
Do you know what? I think all the vehicles in Gavin and Stacey have become iconic.
Okay.
Because we've got Gavin's Saxo, and I think it's really the colour of that stands out. We also have Bryn's... and he's got
Picasso.
a Citroen as well, yeah. His Picasso,
someone got sponsored.
he makes a massive deal out of his Picasso, doesn't he?
He does, and that's Dave's. And then Dave's coach.
Dave's coach. And Smithy's car as well.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, I hadn't really... I guess, because I didn't watch Gavin and Stacey when it was live. The only, current times I watched it were the last two Christmas specials.
Yeah.
And that was only because you made me. I've subsequently watched it back, so I guess I wasn't immersed in it at the time.
Yeah, I think you could show a picture of any one of those vehicles to a fan, and they would instantly know what show you are about to reference.
I stand by my point that he drives it like a twat, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's an Essex lad, isn't he?
I know, that's an on-running theme. So basically what we've learnt is that we don't like either of the two main characters at the start.
Well, I didn't say I didn't like him.
Well,
I also said I didn't like Stacey. Oh no, I've got myself in a muddle.
The British man in me dislikes him because of his driving. He still drives like a twat. And the middle-class, middle-aged man in me thoroughly dislikes him for that.
Well, I was going to point out your middle-agedness because I think that might be the biggest issue.
I don't know. I still feel like I would have disliked him for that in my 20s. I've always been that middle-aged man at heart.
And I think actually that's a point to James Corden and Ruth Jones as well, because they have sort of written stereotypes, because he is a stereotypical Essex lad. Both he and Smithy are, and all the friends really. And the same with the Welsh crew. But they're also nuanced and complex.
They're stereotypes enough that anyone can sort of recognise some part of someone they know in the characters.
Yeah.
But they're also likeable enough that you don't just feel cheapened by it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're endearing.
Oh, they are. Because everyone is good-hearted in it. Every character is going to do something not great at some point, possibly with the exception of Bryn and Gwen.
Well,
yeah, but most of the characters are going to do something pretty reprehensible at least once, but you don't hold it against them because they ultimately, and you hate this phrase, but they mean well, like their heart's in the right place.
They're just human, aren't they? Really,
Yeah.
They're real.
They're human and flawed,
And you can see yourself in them.
but they all love each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they care, and that care comes through. Like they're truly human, those characters, in a way that can only be done through really good writing combined with really good acting.
Yeah. And back to Gavin's car.
Oh yes.
He's on the phone, and again we don't hear the other side of the conversation. The same when we first meet Nessa on the phone with Stacey. This is Smithy on the phone to Gavin.
Is it Smithy on the phone? I did wonder.
Yeah. But we don't hear Smithy, we don't see him, there's no direct audience interaction with Smithy, and yet we get a very clear picture of what Smithy's like.
Yeah, that's true. So now that I know that it's Smithy, that makes an awful lot of sense.
How did you not know it was Smithy?
Well, I just thought it might have been someone else. I don't know. I just got it in my head.
Who was it going to be?
I don't know. It could have been Fingers or Chinese Alan or Dirtbox. I remembered all of those names.
Yeah, so we hear the one-sided conversation, and whoever Gavin is talking to, Smithy, is trying to almost talk him out of going the next day. And Gavin's having to sort of defend himself, really.
Yes, yeah. I suspect I know why I was distracted and didn't realise it was Smithy. It's because Gavin strides in while on the phone and drinks milk directly from the bottle.
He does do that.
Oh, it's worse than his driving. See, I loathe him. He he strides in like this encapsulated that he's young, annoying, lives at home with his parents, and he's just like, I'm just going to drink from the bottle straight from.
But interestingly, actually, his mum is sort of watching him do that.
And he's fine.
Hi, love.
My little prince.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
he's such a spoiled
He
mama's
can do
boy.
no wrong.
Absolutely. And speaking of his mum, Pamela. What? Wow. Speaking of big characters.
I've been crying all afternoon.
What an introduction as a character. Please tell us how we are introduced to Pamela.
Well, she's been crying all afternoon because she's been watching Pet Rescue and it's moved her to tears.
Why has it moved her to tears, Liv?
Well, she actually saw with her own 2 eyes a badger crying.
Now, Gavin says, but badgers can't cry.
I know what I saw, and it's knocked me for 6.
Which is a wonderfully British cricket saying. Yeah. But I'm now completely out of I feel like I wanted to Google this, but can badgers cry?
I have no idea. I'm going to go with no. And I think that's enough said, isn't it?
I suppose so.
Is that what you think?
Yes. I mean, she then transitions immediately to, I've got to cook dinner.
Yes. And she just makes a brief reference to having steak for dinner, which doesn't feel important at the time, but becomes important later on. So then we cut back to Stacey and Gwen, and Gwen's talking about Nessa being there to protect Stacey in London if it's needed.
But why do they think that Nessa is able to look after herself more than Stacey?
Because it's Nessa, and if she's got half the aggression that her dad did, something I can't.
Yeah,
we know Nessa too well at this point.
They're really setting Nessa up, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's terrifying. But the main event.
Well, she also says Uncle Bryn's coming round soon with the rape alarm.
Oh, Uncle Bryn! He might be. He is my favourite character in the show.
Really?
Yeah, I know it's a big shout, but
yeah.
Rob Brydon for the win.
Oh my God,
he was
Brydon.
made for that role.
He's so good.
I know it feels wrong to declare a favourite character, but oh my goodness.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get to that, so that's a reference about he's coming over soon. Nessa lets herself in through the back door with a tiny handbag. Wait, we meet Nessa. How would you describe Nessa?
Big, brash, bold, and takes no shit.
You can tell that just by looking at her. She's got a very dark hair, maybe even black hair, short bob, fair skin.
Black leather, everything.
Yeah. And a tiny handbag. A tiny handbag. And Stacey's like, where's your stuff? And she sort of holds up her handbag and is like, I've got everything I need here. And she's like, what about your toothbrush? Anyway, and she says, I've got Tic Tacs. I don't need a toothbrush.
Yes. And boy, do we see her down those Tic Tacs like a pint later on in the episode.
Yeah. But what I like from this first introduction to their friendship is that it's honest and blunt. And you can just see that they've
been friends for a long time.
Yeah, and they don't bullshit each other.
Because Nessa's unimpressed by Stacey's massive suitcase.
Stacey's got like a 2-week holiday worth of stuff.
Leopard print too, classy. She'll fit right in Essex.
Yeah. Stacey's going for I don't know, forever.
She's not going for a good time. She's going for a long time.
Yeah. And again, that highlights the difference between them because Stacey as a character is quite softly. She's wearing sort of floaty clothing. It's very, very different to Nessa, and the size of their luggage highlights that.
Yeah, what of lack thereof.
Yeah.
So we transition to an outside street view of Gavin's house. I say Gavin's house, his mum and dad's house.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually easy to sort of pass over that, but I think you transitioning between they're using it to show the difference in lifestyle that you've got, the difference in status, because you've got on the one hand Stacey living in a terraced house in Wales with her mum.
Yeah.
And then by contrast you've got Mick and Pam's
Detached.
That's the word. Detached house that's big and it's got a garden and all of just very
Off-street
different.
parking.
Yeah, just illustrating really clearly and quite simply a very different sort of social, economic life situation.
And also that's highlighted by the food, isn't it? Because at Gwen's house, she's serving omelettes, and at Pam and Mick's,
she's having triple steak.
they're having steaks. And this actually brings us to one of my favourite, one of my favourite parts of the episode: 3 steaks, Pam. Pam is so dramatic, and I love it. I'm here for it. And yeah, she sits down to dinner, and Mick looks at her and says, "What you got there?" And she's like, "I've got 3 steaks." And he's going, 3 steaks?
But it's not 3 steaks, is it?
No, it's not 3 steaks. It's 1 steak for me as an actual steak, 1 as a substitute for my chips, and 1 as a substitute for my peas.
I'm not going to lie, that sounds amazing. I want that.
And the thing is, she's on the Atkins.
Oh my god, that's a blast from the past. Atkins.
Again, 2007. We were right there.
Oh.
She's on the Atkins, so she's not having carbs or apparently vegetables. So instead she's having 3 steaks. But I think that also epitomises the diet culture of just getting it wrong, misunderstanding, getting it wrong, the ludicrousy of it.
And just the way she spirals from when her husband Mick sort of goes, "What are you doing? This is ridiculous." And she just spirals herself. And that's a real Pam thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and because she starts talking about everything else that she's tried and that this is like the last resort almost.
And she's not gonna eat it now, because he'll go and tell his friends at the golf club.
Yeah.
And she'll be known as 3 steaks Pam.
Yeah.
And she said, like, "Would you remember what it was like when I had that UTI?" And they never tell us what her name was. And I want to know what...
Because she said, do you remember that nickname when I had that urine infection? I've only just shook that off. And that's all we hear
Yeah,
about
and I'm like, what? What was she called? But they do stuff like that in this show where they leave it unsaid and you have to fill it in.
Yeah. And then she says she's going to starve, potentially to death. You can watch me starve.
We can recount it how much, but the way she says it, just with her accent, just perfect. It's hilarious.
And then again we get the bestie Smithy walking in through the back door, mirroring Nessa walking in through the back door at Gwen's house.
Foreshadowing.
Not foreshadowing. It's just it's the same.
Well, they're intertwined.
They are intertwined. It's not.
They were intertwined.
Oh my gosh! Right, we're not there yet.
No.
Anyway, so Smithy comes in.
Pamela.
He loudly acknowledges everyone, and you can see that he has real affection for Pam, especially, and she has for him too.
I thought it was really interesting because he's got Pamela, Gavilar, Mick, or Michael. So
Michael,
but I feel like there's like a subtle inclination there of like the respect, like he's given a nickname for Gav and for Pamela, and so there's that affection there. But for Mick, he gets Michael, which is like a respect thing.
Well, that's true, and I suppose we actually ultimately see that in the final episode.
Well, having seen that in retrospect, I saw that, and maybe that wasn't originally there, like deliberately, but it feels like it is.
So Smithy's welcomed in. He's complimenting Pam, and she offers him a steak. And he said, "Oh, there's 1 going, is there?" And she says, "Well, there's 3 going." And he says, "3? Well, I've just tackled a
cottage pie, but I'll have 2."
Yeah, I might be able to take 2 on.
Yeah, I'll take 2 off your hands.
Yeah. So she then dramatically tells Smithy that she's not eating, and it might be the last time that he ever sees her. Of course, he wasn't there for the previous conversation, so he's left a bit baffled.
Whoa.
Like, okay, but also completely accepting that this is normal behaviour.
Yeah, it's fine.
At the
He's
house.
seen this before.
Yeah. Because at the Shipman house, isn't it? Because we've got the surnames as well, I guess.
We've got, the Wests and the Shipmans.
Yeah, what a set of names.
For anyone that isn't aware, those are 2 murderers, like some of the largest murderers in UK history, and then eventually we meet another family down the line in other episodes who are the Sutcliffes. Yeah. There's another murderer name.
So then we cut back to Gwen's house, Stacey's house, and Bryn is arriving.
Bryn for the win!
He shows up. He's very...
brown.
I was going to say dour, but he's a man, so I'm not sure if dour is the right way to
Let's go with dour.
Yeah, brown clothes, a
Drab.
shirt, a tie, anorak. He's almost... I don't know.
He's meant to look nerdy and like he's called Nigel and he works at the DMV or whatever.
Yeah, and he asks Nessa how she's doing, and she gives him a very in-depth answer, to which you've pointed this out already once. There was a long silence of everyone sort of absorbing what she said before carrying on.
But what they've encapsulated there again is a social thing of there's an agreement, like an unwritten social agreement, that when someone says, how are you doing? You go, I'm fine.
Yeah.
By bucking that trend and giving a really long, in-depth answer, it creates that awkward tension that as British people, we're like, what is she doing?
Yeah, what?
But it's another deliberate circumvention of social norm for humour.
So Bryn has brought the rape alarm and insists that Stacey practice with it. So he says, come on, attack me, because there's discussion around all of the things, the precautions that Stacey turned down. So like him going with her, among other suggestions that he's clearly made, and she said, no. So she's compromised on the rape alarm.
And it's a brilliant like microcosm of Bryn, because he starts off, I don't want anyone in this room to get raped, including me.
Yeah.
But like... It's a classic Bryn pattern of, like, he starts normal, he escalates and escalates and escalates, and then he gets really specifically harsh, but with a nice friendly tone, because he goes like, and if you get raped, then it won't be on my conscience.
Hang on, no, it's it. If you get raped and I showed you how to use this alarm, I will rest easy in my bed.
My conscience will be clear.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's that moment of silence. And then Gwen goes, well, very nice, thank you.
And he also, in this conversation, it's the first reference we have to Stacey's dad being dead.
Yeah.
And that's why Uncle Bryn is so involved, because he's sort of taking part of that responsibility.
With the, that's true. And it again, mixing in that comedy with the seriousness and sort of alleviating it straight away. But the rape alarm thing really struck with me, because we had one kicking around my house when I was a kid. I don't know why we had one. We used to have to take it on our dog walks with us or whatever.
Right.
But as soon as I heard that there was a rape alarm, I was like, that is going off at some point, because they're insanely easy to go off. The amount of times, because it was hung up in our cloakroom, and the amount of times you'd rustle for something and the thing would fall out, and you'd be like, it'd be going like really loud, and you'd be like, ah! And then you're trying to find a little metal bit, because it's just like a little metal plug that comes out. And so I was like, I think this is going to go off at some point. So it's like Chekhov's rape alarm.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're not the only one that expected that at some point, but you did
All right. Wow. You think you're so clever, Ben. Oh, you're not so clever. Everyone thought of that. Oh.
I'm just there with the audience going, yeah, I knew that.
Look, it felt very identifiable, because we had one, and it feels very retro for me. All right.
Okay, fine. So Bryn wants Stacey to come and attack her so that he can demonstrate the alarm. And she walks up to him and she gives him a very lightweight punch on the arm, and he gets frustrated. And he says, Nessa, can you take over? And the scene ends with just a look. Nessa looks at Bryn. She's got a fag in one hand, and she looks at him like, yeah.
That was the moment Bryn realised he'd made a mistake.
Yeah, you don't know what you've just asked for. And we cut away, so we sort of forget about that for a minute.
From Bryn's apparent death.
Yeah, and Gavin and Smithy are smoking together in the garden. Smoking was huge. Oh my God.
It was so weird seeing all the smoking.
Yeah.
Like, because there's smoking indoors and all of, and I know it was way back in 2007, but even then I feel like it would have been odd.
It was around the time of the smoking ban, wasn't it?
Was it that late?
I think the smoking ban was 2008. I know, I could be wrong.
It feels like it's been forever, so I just assume it was pretty much when I was like 10.
Yeah, no, it's not that long back.
Well, I'm taking a shoeing here, aren't I?
Anyway, they're talking about Gavin's nerves and his excitement, and Smithy again tries to talk Gavin out.
I see, now it makes sense that it was him on the phone. I think it might have been him on the phone.
Oh my God, right, it definitely was.
I'm saying it's a possibility.
And Smithy says he's been talking to Fingers and
Dirtbox and Chinese Alan.
And they all agree. They all agree with Smithy that Gavin shouldn't go.
And who should argue with such luminaries as Fingers and Dirtbox?
Yeah, and then I can't remember what Gavin says, but Smithy then becomes defensive about his own relationship.
Well, he pointed out that Smithy's only had one proper relationship, and being as she's only just turned 17...
17 3/4 actually.
I'm not gonna lie, this was creepy as fuck. This whole thing.
These lads, I mean, I think they're meant to be 23, 24, but they look older.
Yeah, it just feels, particularly in the more modern era, it feels creepy.
It does feel creepy.
Like,
but maybe it was meant to be.
Probably.
Maybe it was meant to be.
It feels like it was an ill-advised comedic thing that maybe they grew out of, because they moved on from it, I think.
Well, it took them a while.
It did take them a while, but I found it uncomfortable.
You're right, and I do agree. So then Gavin says to Smithy, look, you don't have to come. And Smithy says no, and he insists on going with Gavin the next day, in case the Welsh girls are, and I quote, complete nutters.
Hard cut to, ironically, Nessa being a complete nutter.
Yes, yeah. She's pinning Bryn up against the wall, like really quite hard, and calling him a perverted piece of shit.
Which seems mean.
Yeah, and if you remember, they were practicing with the rape alarm. So, you know, on point, I think. Well done, Nessa. And
then almost like a cut within a cut, she then cuts back to saying...
Yeah, she pulls right back off him, doesn't she?
Is that what you wanted, Bryn?
Yeah. Is that the sort of thing you meant, Bryn?
Yeah. Cut!
Yeah.
Gavin and Stacey settling down to sleep.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a wishy-washy, but I suppose it's scene setting, isn't it?
Yes, although we see the montages of, like, Gavin going to sleep, and then we cut to Stacey going to sleep, and Nessa's lying face down, and you just got the shot right up her thonged bum crack.
Yeah.
Which is
she's taking over most of the bed. Stacey's, like, crushed into the corner.
It's a bold choice when you consider that the actress playing Nessa is one of the writers.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And to be fair, she's not making anyone do anything she herself wouldn't be willing to do.
Yeah, fair point. So it's fairly obvious at that point they're going to sleep, and then the next scene that we see is going to be the next day. It's going to be the meeting day.
And it's the camera panning across Barry Beach, and then a dog runs across the screen on Barry Island.
Which I had never noticed before we watched the finale this year.
Finale.
Yeah. But you pointed it out.
Yeah, every time they do the panoramic shot of the Barry Island, there's always a collie, the same collie, I think, running across with its owner walking across.
Yeah. And we see Marco's snack stand, don't we? Where Stacey ultimately works.
Yeah.
And then we see Stacey
and Nessie. That sounds like a kid's show, doesn't it? Stacey and Nessie. They solve crimes on a bicycle. Right, let's review that show. Recap that.
That's probably not the first time I'm going to say that either. We see them boarding Dave's coaches, and that becomes a thing, doesn't it?
Yes.
Dave's coaches.
Do you know what's also a thing? Cut!
Now, hang on. I was just going to make a little note here, because we see Dave lusting after Nessa as they board I said the boat.
Dave's boats.
That doesn't work at all.
From Barry Island. It makes sense.
All right. Anyway,
it's Bave's boats.
No.
Oh, God. You can tell we're 40 minutes in, can't you?
God. What?
40-ish. Ish.
Okay. Right, cut everything.
Gavin and Smithy on a train. Taves trains. And Smithy starts talking about what I consider to be one of the most 90s things ever. A beer challenge tracker.
Yeah. It's really funny.
It is really funny because it shows you a really classic Smithy tantrum. Like, Smithy's tantrums are like such a theme of the whole show. They're like his character. You're really repressing.
So holding that in.
Yeah, you almost like spat that water everywhere, didn't you? Just the idea of a Smithy tantrum.
You're calling it a tantrum. I never really thought of it in that way. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
And he gets really into it.
He's like, I'm the only one taking it seriously. This was your idea. We're all on board. They all dropped out. I'm the only one taking it seriously. It is. He goes on a bit.
I wash my hands of you.
Yeah.
It's just so dramatic. Just like Pamela.
Yes, that's why they get on, isn't
it?
And also, it's in this moment, I think, that we hear reference to the really weird other nicknames in the friendship group. Because he references Fingers,
Dirtbox,
Box,
Chinese Owl. There's some other people as well.
And you start to think, who are these people?
Oh, we get to meet them one day.
And Smithy again references his desire for Stacey's friend to be attractive.
Yes, I think we might need to do a PSA for our non-English listeners.
PSA. Public service announcement. I'm there.
Yes, because there's two slang terms that have been used that I think we need to touch on, despite them being unpleasant.
Go on then.
We've got minger and munter.
Yeah.
And they're both derogatory terms for women to imply that they are unattractive and also possibly on the large side.
Yeah.
But it's very in character for...
It's also very of the time. Like,
Yeah.
I know I've aged out of it anyway, but I haven't heard those terms being used for a very, very long time.
I'd be surprised if you had
If I had what?
heard munter and minger.
Well,
I suppose, yeah, minger particularly
I
feels
guess it
very...
was school language. I
Yeah.
think that might be it, you know.
No one's called me a gaylord for ages. That was very of its time.
I was coming along with a serious point.
That was a serious point. What was your serious point, Liv?
I was going to say
Breathe.
that these are very playground names.
Yeah. How did you know that's where I was being called?
But I was going to say that is how Smithy in particular is presented to us as immature.
Or maybe that's why he's dating a only recently 17-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're meant to be younger than we thought.
No, I think it's
You
just
think
meant
it's
to be
just
deeply
immature?
uncomfortable, and he's immature. That, to be fair, that is representative of banter
Yeah.
for men I say men of like that age. Yeah, so I think that's not unrealistic.
I've got a list here of character traits that I believe Smithy to have.
Okay. Are these diagnoses or?
Not quite, but I thought of them in this moment watching this scene, and I got emotional, immature, whiny, dramatic, and high maintenance. And I finished that list, and then I thought some of these things are true of Stacey. And then I thought, well, Nessa's more grounded and Gavin's more grounded, so I feel like each couple has...
Well, yeah, I mean, you could really start getting into psychoanalysis, because is Gavin's best friend just like his mum, and because there's other stuff that I'll talk about later with like Smithy and certain things that he does that I think play into that sort of like looking to Mick as this sort of male role model.
When you say later, do you mean the very last episode?
No, I mean in this episode.
Oh, right, okay.
We'll touch on it later.
Later this episode?
Later this episode.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know why you're having such difficulty with this concept of time being linear.
But shall we move on? Because I think I'm going to just go around in circles otherwise. So we see Dave's coaches arrive in London. I can't help but say Dave's
boats.
Dave Coaches.
Dave Coaches
Coach arrives in London, and we see the various iconic London sites.
Yeah, Big Ben, the Tower of London, those beautiful classic coach fabrics in the coach.
Yeah.
Like, just all coaches were like that. Do you know why coach fabric was like that?
Was it the cheapest one?
No.
Was it to hide stains?
Yes, because you couldn't see anything, because it was so garish and varied. You couldn't see, like, cigarette burns and gum and all of that. It was designed to be like that. Also, it wouldn't get stolen.
Yeah, no one wants to steal that.
Although, I would have a...
No, absolutely not. I know where you're going with this. So we see Stacey touching up her makeup, and we see Nessa smoking.
On a coach.
Completely expressionless. And then the camera starts switching between Stacey and Nessa and Gavin and Smithy walking through London.
I thought that was really interesting because it feels like this travel show montage.
Yeah.
And they're just walking through what appears to be normal members of the public.
Yes.
And I just thought they couldn't do this now because like you see in the later Christmas specials, they're filming and there's crowds like
they've had to close the street, haven't they?
Yeah, back then none of these people were household names, so they could do that and just walk around and no one would like just hassle them.
Well, I think a couple of them had fame, but I think they're
not in the same way.
Their characters were disguised enough. I mean, Ruth Jones looks absolutely nothing like Nessa.
So it's just so of its time. Like as soon as the first season really released, they wouldn't have been able to do that.
No, they were an instant hit, weren't they? But
Yeah.
you're right, yeah. So we see them just filming in the crowds. And then we see Stacey stood alone. What, are you laughing already?
I just...
You know what's coming.
I saw my notes.
Okay. So we see Stacey stood alone in front of a fountain, or the fountain, at Leicester Square. And then Gavin and Smithy see her from a distance and head towards her.
This is where they go full on rom-com tropes.
Yes, that's true.
They see each other from a distance, they run to, and then they talk over each other because it's all awkward. It's almost Disney-esque in its sort of romantic tropes.
Yeah, and it does feel awkward. As an audience member, it feels awkward you feel awkward for them, don't you?
And it feels very exactly what you'd expect from like this traditional love story. And they've talked about it, that Gavin and Stacey are the traditional love story.
Yeah.
And then you've got the nebulous family and then this whole Nessa Smithy thing.
Yeah.
And it's just there is where they go full on classic
Meet cute.
Yeah. And then Stroppy Smithy to
Yeah,
really undermine
so-
the classicness.
Yeah, Gavin introduces Smithy to Stacey. Smithy asks Stacey if she came on her own in the end.
Really passive aggressively.
Yeah, yeah. And Stacey says, "Oh no, here she comes now." And we see Nessa sort of striding. What would you say that walk is? Like
Striding.
striding.
Yeah.
With 2 slices of pizza, and she's like, £6 for 2 slices of pizza.
Very much channeling the spirit of every non-Londoner in the
Yeah.
country. But you do then hear Smithy go under his breath, "Oh, for God's sake."
Yeah. And Nessa says to Stacey, "Do you want this pizza?" Because they've just agreed to go to a bar, haven't they? And Stacey says, "Oh no, I'm not hungry now." And so Nessa just without looking, without asking, she just hands over one of the slices to Smithy, and he accepts. And he's like, "Yeah, why not?"
Ka-ching, free pizza. Num num num.
And I think that's probably foreshadowing.
Yeah.
That is foreshadowing, as opposed to just being the same.
Foreshadowing that she gives him her pizza.
Or that she gives him
Her pizza.
the toilet brush later on.
Okay, that was very quiet. The toilet brush, yes.
Well, you know, I mean, they touch on it a little bit, and then we find out more in the later episode.
Okay, well, good times. To the bar!
To the bar!
And my first reaction when they got there, when he did his order, was...
Yeah.
8 shots to... Am I old? I don't think
Well, it's only 2 each.
Only 2 shots each, and the spirits or the beers that they're
Yeah.
having. I'm like, that is
You're
a
a
bold
non-drinker.
start. Yeah, that is a bold start. I was just like, ooh.
And Smithy says to Gavin, "This is a nightmare of epic proportions." Again,
Dramatic.
Yeah, dramatic. Thanks, Smithy.
All I've written down is, oh God, more shots.
Yeah.
I was very focused on the sheer volume of alcohol being consumed in this scene.
And there's I mean, we can't recreate the whole script. A very funny dialogue, but we get loud music. It's sort of dance music, sort of throbbing in the background. We see foreshadowing. We see we see Gavin and Smithy sitting on one sofa and Stacey and Nessa sitting on the other. And as the night goes on and the drinks accumulate and the empty glasses accumulate on the table, we see them switch, and Gavin and Stacey are sat together and Smithy and Nessa are sat together.
Foreshadowing.
So their evening progresses and they're dancing and the music's continuing and they're sort of moving physically closer and closer together, dancing.
I have no frame of reference as to how realistic this is. This was not my scene.
It's very realistic.
Okay, whoa, okay.
Okay, but I think that's what's nice about it is what you see, it's what you experience. Gavin and Stacey share some sentimental words.
Very
together.
loudly that they can't hear.
Yeah, they're sort of shouting in each other's ear. They're going, "I can't hear you," and then the other one tries to say something, but ultimately it ends with their first kiss.
Smoochy kiss.
And it's actually quite sweet and romantic.
Stacey looks almost drunk afterwards. Like, she doesn't really like
She's drunk in love.
Yes. That moment of, like, giddy realisation of, like, oh.
Yeah, like it's real, it's happening.
Yeah, I thought that was really
and then
well done.
It's not a smash cut, but it's a pan of the camera or something. I can't. And
It's like a gentle pad cut.
pad cut, okay, and we see Smithy repeatedly slapping Nessa's ass.
In a playback to Mick slapping Pamela's ass before dinner, It just feels
yeah.
like
I
a
hadn't
kind
thought
of
of that.
connecting, like he's mirroring what he sees in his parental role model.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because what you see later on in the show is that Smithy's dad isn't around. There's just his mum, who's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have a father figure.
But he does.
In
Michael.
Michael.
And then they sort of finish their clubbing, and Stacey invites Gavin back to the hotel, and he's sort of like, oh, yeah, go on then. Like, really quite shy, quite respectful of Stacey.
Yeah, I identified with him there, because I was like, I remember being so overly cautious to not overstep my bounds or not be pushy and all of that. Like,
Yeah.
and you see more of that a bit later.
Yeah, but you also then see Smithy sort of striding in the same way that Nessa did, really, over to Gavin and saying, like, I'm going back with this one.
Whose name I can't remember.
He can't remember Nessa's name.
And she's chill with it. She's like, Nessa.
Yeah. Nessa.
You do that so well.
They have a bit of a chat about condom situation. Nessa says she's got loads in her bag.
Ribbed.
Yeah.
Of course.
At which point Smithy calls a cab.
Smithy's
He's very excited by this.
He's changed his tune.
And then they arrive at the hotel. We see them sort of bursting through the hotel door.
Kapow!
Kapow. And they start to make arrangements for sexy times.
Because there's nothing sexier than logistics.
And what's really funny, I think it's funny, and again, Stacey does this a few times throughout the whole show. She suggests something that I feel like most people would object to, and Gavin does object. She says, well, look, we'll take this bed, you take that one, we'll turn the lights off and just get on with it.
Her and like to equally suggest like her and Smithy were a little bit
akin,
yeah, because they both start stripping off their trousers and stuff, just like, yeah, let's get on with it, I'm fine with it.
And Gavin protests. He's like, whoa.
Gavin is obviously showing he's a bit more sheltered.
He's a bit more sensitive, I think. Smithy says that as a mate, he and Nessa will go in the ensuite.
To be fair, that is a true friend.
Yeah. And I've made a note here that Smithy and Nessa are quite rowdy. They go off to the ensuite, sort of teasing each other, slapping each other a little bit.
I quite like the role reversal where now it's Nessa slapping him on the ass and saying, hope you're hungry.
Yeah. And so they're rowdy, and then Gavin and Stacey are quite romantic. Like, Gavin suggests putting the music on. They fiddle around with the radio for a bit, trying to find something decent to listen to. And we hear then Last Request by Paolo Nutini playing.
I wonder why they chose that song.
Well, it's slow down, lie down. They're the first lyrics. And I think that it almost instructs them, doesn't it, what to do? And Gavin's looking awkward, and Stacey lends a hand. She pulls him over towards her, and they kiss slowly, meaningfully, deeply.
It sounds like you're reading the audiobook of it.
But it's a nice moment, especially juxtaposed to what we saw of Smithy and Nessa.
Oh, it's not overusing it when you use it.
No,
again.
I can use it as much as I like.
I know when you've got a really good point because you're waving your highlighter worryingly close to my nose.
And then they turn the lights off. And they start kissing, and we can't really see because the lights are off, but we can see that there is movement, and they're kissing.
We can hear Smithy and Nessa.
Well, then we hear really loud moaning, groaning, slapping sounds coming from the ensuite, and then there's a toilet flush,
which is a great punchline.
And that just sort of fades out. That scene sort of fades, I suppose, as the night fades.
And that's the end of the show. Nothing more is ever done.
No. The next morning we see Nessa and Stacey gathering their stuff. The two lads are asleep on the beds. Two beds. There's a twin situation.
The beds is.
Yeah.
Babe's beds.
Let's not do that. And Nessa tells Stacey not to wake Gavin because she looks like shit now.
Inverting the rom-coms trope again.
Yeah. She's saying something like, not being funny, last night you looked cracking. Let that be the memory. And actually, that's quite kind of Nessa.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's that honest, brutal friendship that they have.
Well, yeah, because we find out that, and I presume that the inference is that Nessa and Stacey have already talked about it, but that Stacey's worried that she may never see Gavin again.
Yeah, that this would be a wonderful weekend, and that's all it is.
And so Nessa is being kind to Stacey by saying, let him remember you while you're cracking.
Yeah.
to give you that confidence.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really nice thing amidst the comedy.
Yeah, and Stacey kind of agrees, and so she writes him a note instead, and we don't see what she puts on the note until Gavin wakes up.
Which is nice.
Did you notice what she wrote on the note?
I didn't, but I did notice that before they left, that Nessa did in fact down those Tic Tacs like they were a pint of beer.
Yeah.
Like,
But just going back to the note ever so slightly.
Sorry.
She put something like, it was lovely to meet you, blah, 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 PTO. He turns it over to see what she's written on the other side. And it says, P.S. if you find Nessa's thong, can you post it back? And we're thinking, oh, that's weird. And then we see Smithy. Gavin wakes Smithy up. Like, Smithy, get up. We gotta go. And Smithy's like, what are we doing? And Gavin's like, I want to go and see her to say goodbye. And Smithy reluctantly gets out of bed to get ready, and he is wearing Nessa's thong. Which,
now that I think on it, it makes me feel like I can't, because Smithy, James Corden, is the other writer for the show.
Yeah.
So both writers show their bare bum in the same thong
in that
the
thong,
episode.
yeah, it's the same one.
So I can't help but feel like maybe James Corden suggested to Ruth Jones, oh, you should be lying there with your bum out like that.
Yeah.
And she went, I will only do that if you
Payback.
also.
Yeah.
So, like, fair's fair, the two writers.
Yeah.
I've only just thought of
Yeah.
that, but it seems, it just screams something like that.
I hadn't noticed that, but yeah, good call.
They were literally the butt of the joke.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention, when Smithy wakes up, he's sort of groaning, and he refers to himself, I feel abused. He's looking a bit worse for wear, and he's panicking a little bit, and he starts asking Gavin, like, what did Stacey do? Because Nessa, she put things places, which is gearing up towards that whole toilet brush incident that we learn about.
Which, I mean, is unsanitary at best.
Yeah, and he talks about feeling guilty about Lucy, because in all honesty, I forgot he had a girlfriend.
Well, she was at Scouts or, like, trampolining or something.
Yeah, but poor form, Smithy.
Yes.
Like, I don't agree with that.
There's a lot about Smithy that I don't think you can agree with.
So poor Lucy.
But you'll also notice that he says he's got to come clean about it straight away, and it's Gavin that's saying, no, mate, you don't need to say anything.
I don't think Gavin respects the relationship, does he?
But it also...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's not a classy move.
No.
No one's covering themselves in glory.
No, but
just toilet brushes.
That is what you said earlier, isn't it? They all do stuff that's reprehensible, really, ultimately, but you still like them.
Yeah, they do make it hard sometimes.
We see Nessa talking with Dave, and he suggests they go out for a Chinese for dinner, and Nessa threatens him with telling everyone that he's riddled. He backs off, to be fair to him. He does back off, and then he asks how she is down there.
Ship-shape and shiny, I believe was the response.
Yeah, do you know what? I thought, gosh, this whole conversation, and certainly the Welsh crew as a whole, you could call them what you like, but they are not shy.
They are direct.
Very direct. It's sort of admirable in a way, because everyone knows where they stand. Gavin calls to Stacey, and she is shocked. She turns round.
Aww.
It's what?
That was really nice, and it was juxtaposed really nicely. This is our theme for of Smithy getting really awkward with Nessa and saying, "I'll ring you," and she goes, "Why?" Which again is they're
Don't be a dick, Smithy.
Yeah, that's the exact opposite of the traditional romantic scenes that you're seeing with Gavin and Stacey. You're seeing a complete inversion, but like that. Not to get too deep into the longer run, but that's almost like a trope in and of itself. The two of them the two couples have an exact opposite path, but they both ultimately end in the same place. And
Smithy gives Nessa her thong back.
Yay!
And she's just like, cheers. Like, she doesn't think too much of it.
Did you notice that when Gavin was like, Stacey's having a puff on a fag, and she chucks it under the coach?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Like, she really chucked, like, ah! Like, don't let him see. Really noticeable, because she was facing the other way. I just thought it was just a nice little thing. Well,
she gets emotional saying goodbye. And Gavin's trying to be romantic and say, I'm going to miss you. And she says, no, don't promise me nothing. Like, she doesn't... You said it earlier, like, she's very fearful that this is a one-off. She's faced a lot of rejection, I think Stacey has.
And once again, the wonderful juxtaposition of Smithy going, right, KFC?
Yeah. And Gavin's like, no, we gotta go. And he gets them into a taxi and they rush. Like, Gavin is rushing. Smithy doesn't seem to know what's hit him. And we see them then pulling up outside Pam and Mick's in a taxi. Gavin gets straight out, almost ignores his mum and gets into his car and drives off.
He's in his car before his mum even comes out, in full face mask. Big green face mask.
Yeah.
And a pink, pyjamas.
You say face mask now, it makes you think of COVID, but it's like a pamper mask kind of thing.
Yeah, the pores.
Yeah. And so Pam and Smithy are left together, and Pam says, "You all right, Smithy, love? Did you have a good time?" And Smithy says, "Not really, no."
And then rubs his bum as he's going in the house, because she offers him a special Pam fry-up.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we see Gavin driving to Wales. We know we're getting in Wales.
But where's he going?
Well, he's going to Wales.
But where in Wales?
Okay, well, I was going to say, we see the image of the bridge, that iconic toll bridge that you don't have to pay for anymore.
No. But where's he going?
He's going to see Stacey. He's going to Barry Island. Well, he's going to Barry anyway.
I think it's really nice, the scene where she arrives back on the coach.
And he's already there.
And we don't know it either.
No.
We get that classic reveal of he's there.
Because do we see her face? And we think, what's she looking at?
She turns around and goes...
Yeah.
And he's there just going, with his hands in his pocket going... Arr.
Yeah. In a classic Gavin stand.
And then she runs over, and it's genuinely quite touching.
Yeah.
Alongside their exchange. Obviously, after Nessa decides that a curry's better than Chinese, because she gets off for a curry with
Nessa
Dave.
just yells over to... Stacey. Stace, I'm going for a curry with Dave. And that's it. There's no response. She just goes.
Yeah.
And then Stacey gets emotional again. And I think that's maybe why people get fed up with her, because she's always emotional. But
to be fair, I think that line where they go, "If you say it, I'll say it back," that Gavin says to her.
Yeah.
It's corny, and it's so stereotypically rom-commy, but it's beautiful as well.
Yeah.
It's the climax of the episode.
And it kind of becomes their thing. It's another thing that...
And it gets called back to over the years,
that's what I mean, yeah. So they tell each other that they love each other. I was going to say...
Why was that so...
I was going to say themselves. They tell each other that they love themselves.
I love me.
That's not what happens.
I love that. If you say it, I'll say it back.
I love me.
I love me too.
They hug. Do you want this moment?
And her rape alarm goes off. They had me at the beginning for the first half, but they finally dropped it in. Just when you would have forgotten about it.
Yes.
And Gavin's like, "What the hell's that?" "Oh, it's just my rape alarm.
Don't
Keep
worry
kissing
about
me."
Yeah.
And did you notice they panned back to a wide pan shot of Barry Island, and the dog is being walked in the background. It doesn't run across the page, because they've already done that in the episode.
Yeah.
But it is there being walked in the background. I was looking.
Okay. I did not see that.
Yeah.
Okay. That went over my head. But what I did notice is that Gavin's car is overhanging the double yellow lines.
He's a wrong-un. I told you, he's such a wrong-un. It would only have been worse if he was in a disabled bay.
Yeah.
Those damn cockneys.
I think he's not Cockney. He's from Essex. They're very different people with very different ideas.
But, yeah.
That's a quote from another episode.
Oh, it's okay when you pay it forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just dropping things in there for the long-term audience.
And that was the first ever episode of Gavin and Stacey, of the eponymous Gavin and Stacey.
Oh my god. Yes. Yeah.
So what did you make of it? What did you make of that first episode?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I think I said this at the beginning. It was ideal, really. We met all the characters. We get a feel for what they're like and what we're going to see more of.
Yeah. Every character that we see was... You could take that and just go, all you need to know. You could then watch any episode for the rest of it, and you'd get it.
Yeah.
Because they don't really change that much.
And it would be funny.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And doing all of that scene setting while also being just as funny as any other episode in the run.
So, what would you rate it?
So, I would rate it... It's got to be 7 blue Clios out of 7.
Okay. It was a Saxo.
Oh, 7 blue Saxos out of 7.
I could see what you were going with there.
7 points on your licence out of 7.
You can only have... Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. No,
there's
12 points on a licence.
I take it back. 7 bog brushes out of 7. Yeah, perfection. I don't think you could have made this better.
Oh, really?
I mean, maybe you could argue that maybe the slightly awkward stuff about the pseudo underage girlfriend was a bit... But do you know what? I'll forgive it. 7 out of 7.
Wow.
It's only downhill from here. What about you? What would you rate it?
Oh, well, I've thought...
How many out of 7?
No, I've thought about this. I'm giving it 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10?
Yeah.
Well, what was wrong with it?
Well, it's that age-old thing of, like, how does your rating work? They didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing wrong with it.
Then why did you deduct them 2 points, Liv?
Well, I didn't. I gave them an overall. That was quite good. I would watch more.
Quite good?
Yeah.
Quite good?
Yeah, like, there were those awkward moments.
Bryn's brother Trevor would be spinning in his grave if he knew that they got an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. But, there's got to be somewhere to go, and I know that they get there.
Oh, you're artificially adjusting it.
No. I'm thinking, if you were watching this for the first time, you'd go, yeah, it was funny. Yeah, this could be good. This could be good. So...
Outrageous.
No. I think that's perfectly fair.
Well, and on that travesty, that's all, folks. Next time on Telly Talk, we'll be recapping Season 1, Episode 2 of Gavin and Stacey.
Don't forget to rate and review the pod. We really appreciate your time and effort. It means a lot to us. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Toodles.